might have forgotten about this. Maybe you missed it. So Drew Brees, who made it official on Sunday, he's not coming back to the NFL as a player, but he is coming back to the NFL in a different role. He's already agreed to join NBC as a football analyst, commentator. Now, this is expected to happen immediately. Brees will turn in his Saints gear. The Peacock logo will then be handed to him in a big mega bucks contract to be a broadcaster at the outfit out of Stamford, Connecticut. So let us discuss the question. What are the chances that Drew Brees turns out to be good? We know he's going to be a broadcaster. There's a lot of athletes that become broadcasters. Most of them are very forgettable. But what are the chances that Drew Brees turns out to be good as a football commentator? Now, I'm going to set the odds on this, the MALLER Sportsbook, at plus 2,000, which implies, if you're not good with numbers, a less than 5% chance that Drew Brees turns out to be as good as some expect him to be. Now, I am a believe it when it happens type of person, so I am not expecting much. Now, I've got the merit badge, Wikipedia, and the traveling Lollipop salesman. And we will connect all of this together. Now, first of all, Drew Brees has the odds against him. I believe that to be true. Brees has been very generous with his time when speaking with reporters over the years. And, of course, much of that media availability was actually required. It was mandated in the standard contract. When you're the quarterback, you have certain obligations that you have to keep. Despite that, the NFL media, generally speaking, love to talk about Drew Brees. They can't say enough kind things. And I've had the chance, going back to my days in San Diego many, many years ago, where I dealt with Brees early on in his career, and then I saw him a couple years back with the Saints when they were in L.A. here, where we do the show from, playing the Rams. Always very courteous, very respectful, likable. When Drew Brees said he would never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America and our country, he then went into panic mode because he wanted everyone to like him, and some people didn't like him. They got very upset with him, and even though there were people that were applauding that position, that the people that think you should stand up for the flag, well, Brees got in a lot of trouble, right? Because people didn't like him. And so Brees then, he got the pushback from the wackadoodles in the media, so he issued multiple apologies. His wife issued an apology. It was so over the top, and that just shows you how much Drew Brees values being liked, right? And the fact that people didn't like him, then, of course, he upset the people that did think you should stand up for the national anthem and respect the flag and all that. So then you had that crowd. So you had both sides, and you can't please everybody, and Brees was trying to please everybody. So he just kept apologizing. Clearly, Drew Brees earned his Boy Scout merit badge for citizenship in the community, right? But this is not going to help him in sportscasting. What makes a good commentator? What makes a good commentator? Now, everyone's got their favorites. To me, the ability to properly criticize. Now, that doesn't mean you always have to criticize, but you have to be able to. You have to have that in your toolbox. And you have to have the skill set required where, even though you're part of that fraternity, and Drew Brees is very much part of the fraternal order of NFL players, you still have to be willing to step on some toes. The gold standard for commentary is Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley unloads on NBA players all the time. Barkley's also one of the great players in NBA history. Outstanding. Fun to watch. Hall of Fame player, Charles Barkley, but he is, as a critic, it goes with the territory. He realizes that. Now, is Drew Brees going to be like that? You think Drew Brees is going to start unloading haymakers? And I would say no. Now, secondly, Drew Brees has no business stepping into a prime gig on NBC. But he's doing it anyway. He walks out of the locker room in New Orleans and into the makeup chair. And just because you can play football doesn't mean you can talk about football. And proving yet again, though, that the long gone and forgotten sportscaster from many, many years ago, Howard Cosell, was ahead of his time. 40-plus years ago, Howard Cosell whined and moped and was a sourpuss about the Jockocracy At that time, way back in the 1980s in television, now if you're not familiar with Jockocracy, that is when former athletes are hired on network broadcasting gigs, these plum assignments, not on merit, but simply because they used to be athletes. And Brees made a ton of money. Good for him. He made almost $300 million playing in the NFL, and he is getting a contract with no broadcasting experience of what is believed to be over $6 million from NBC. Imagine getting a job where you have no experience for the job and you get that kind of contract. That's the Jockocracy. And so he's benefiting from that. And even if he's terrible, there's a certain percentage of people that are going to fawn all over Drew Brees because of what he was as a player, right? And there's also a lot of executives in sports media that regardless of how good or bad you are as a commentator, you get an exemption, you get a free pass because you were good as a player. Drew Brees will be the beneficiary of what's known as the Svengali Effect. Like, he's already been canonized, right? So Brees, I'm convinced of this. Drew Brees could read some random Wikipedia page, and the hero-worshiping crowd, okay, will be so mesmerized and hypnotized. They'll be, oh, my God, no one's ever read that Wikipedia page about corn quite like Drew Brees, right? Now, media critics will extol his virtues as they rhapsodize the brilliance, even if he's not good. Even if Brees is not good, this is going to go on. All right, final thought. So Drew Brees shared a video. We mentioned this earlier. He shared a video on Instagram that featured his 4 kids. And, all cute little kids telling everyone their dad is hanging up his cleats. Now, the Brees children happily said, our dad is finally going to retire so he can spend more time with us. Whee! So who's going to be the person that has to break the news to the little kids there, the whippersnappers, that their daddy already has another job as a traveling lollipop salesman? He'll be selling football-flavored lollipops because Drew Brees is expected to start immediately as a studio analyst for Football Night in America and as an in-game analyst commentator for the Golden Domers of Notre Dame, South Bend, Indiana. We assume by the next football season, broadcasters will be traveling to games and to studios to comment. NBC had their studio crew in Connecticut this past season. Notre Dame football in-person broadcasting expected to return. So that means that in addition to all of the hours of preparation that one has to do while getting ready for a broadcast to do it properly, you will also have weekly sojourns to South Bend, Indiana. And I heard Brees is going to retire. He's got the place in Louisiana, but he spends a lot of time in Southern California from his days with the San Diego Chargers back in the day. So let's say he spends the wintertime, where the weather's kind of nasty, in San Diego. So he'll be traveling from San Diego to South Bend, Indiana, and then on to Stamford, Connecticut, where the NBC hub is, and then fly back, which means he will be traveling just about every Friday through Monday during football season, because that Sunday night game ends late, so he likely will have to wait till Monday morning to fly back. And that'll be every weekend just about. During football season, Brees is going to be on the road. So the person who really should be flummoxed by all this is Chris Collinsworth, another long-ago NFL player. Now, why is that? Because Drew Brees is the hand-picked replacement the Peacock Network has gotten to groom to replace Chris Collinsworth. Collinsworth is 62 years old, and that's apparently too old for NBC. They're going to ride it out one more season with Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth leading up to the crescendo, the Super Bowl in 2022, and then they're going to hit the eject button. Mike Tirico is expected to replace Al Michaels, who's 76 years old at this point, and Drew Brees is going to body slam Chris Collinsworth out of the press box after that next Super Bowl. And keep in mind, nobody knows if Brees is any good or not, but he's already being groomed to replace the number one broadcasting crew. Is Sunday Night Football the most important television window? So there's a lot going on here. And that's where I am. Again, if you missed the beginning there, as far as Drew Brees actually being good, I think there's a 5% chance, less than 5%, simply because of the fact that I am not convinced that Drew Brees is going to be willing to criticize anybody. And that is something that makes it more interesting and more enjoyable and more real. If you just kiss everyone's ass and you don't criticize anyone, what good is that? And it goes the other way, too. If you just rip everyone all the time and you don't praise anyone, it's a double-edged sword.